After looking at running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks on this channel, my last video for this fantasy football series is the tight ends. In this video, we'll look at who I like, who I don't like, and my general strategy for this position. Before we begin, here are the rules for these rankings. This is based on a 12-team league. This league features a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, flex kicker, and a defense. For scoring, this is based on your half-point PPR league. Pass touchdowns are worth 4, and all the other standard rules apply. If your league has different settings than the ones listed, I also have the following rankings listed in my Patreon as well. Definitely sign up below in order to get access to those files. The final thing I'm going to say is that if you need a custom draft sheet because your league has weird scoring, I'll happily make that for you. Just send me proof by email that you're a donor, and I'll get that to you as soon as I get a chance. With that out of the way, let's start with my Tier 1 rankings of the tight ends. This tier features 2 players. We have Travis Kelce and George Kittle. Both are the elite of the elite for this position, and Kelce should be targeted at the end of the first round to early second round in this format. Kittle, on the other hand, is more like a late second round pick this season. Out of these 2 players, Kelce might be a bit undervalued simply by the perception of tight ends and their production abilities in fantasy. He could fall into the middle of the second round, and that offers a ton of value. Similar to my last 3 videos, let's quickly go through the columns on your screen. We have the base info like player, team name, and bye week, but we also have RK, which stands for my ranking of that player. Additionally, we have ADP, which is their average draft position. Using a combo of these 2 factors, we can then calculate diff, which is just the difference between ADP and my ranking. This can be used to determine value. The final column is their auction price, which is based on your standard $200 league. With that being said, let's move on to Tier 2. In this tier, we have some really talented players. Ertz, Andrews, and Waller are all great. This honestly might be the tier that I target a tight end for my team. I think there's a pretty big drop-off as we move on to the following tier. Andrews is going a bit earlier than I would hope for, so Darren Waller might end up being the pick on this list. However, I'm not planning on overdrafting this position. If I don't get a top 5 guy, I won't freak out as I can get more value in the following tier. Let's look at my Tier 3 rankings. In this one, we have guys like Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, and Jared Cook leading this group. Now, if you look down the board, you see Hayden Hurst, who is probably the best pure value play for this entire position this year. He's a guy that I'm going to be targeting in this draft simply because of his upside. With the Falcons, they have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, but they lost over 200 targets with players leaving this offseason. The Falcons lost Austin Hooper, Devontae Freeman, and Mohamed Sanu, so Hurst should definitely get a decent number of those throws. He finished last season with roughly 40 targets, and I could easily see him doubling that this season. There's a lot of upside in that regard. While we won't break down all my picks, as I said before, there's a pretty clear drop-off in terms of consistent production between Tiers 2 and Tier 3. I mentioned Hurst, and he's a guy I'm going to target as a sleeper in all my leagues. If I do end up taking him, I'm going to also grab another tight end like Chris Herndon from the Jets or Blake Jarwin from the Cowboys, who could be more involved in their respective offenses. Similar to what I said last season, this might be another year where I roll with 2 tight ends and just look for good matchups. To wrap up this fantasy football series, my rankings are available in Excel in the link below. Make sure you check out my Patreon to get access. Only a $1 a month donation gets you access to all those files. Also, it'll help support this channel directly, which I always appreciate greatly. As I said before, if you need a custom sheet since your league has weird scoring, send me an email with proof that you're a donor and I'll happily create that for you. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video series, and next week we'll be back to the film room breaking down more players. For my latest updates, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Samuel R. Gold.